4:50 now on the Big FM 93.7 in the Milwaukee Journal Sentinel today. Dan Bice, who writes the No Quarter column, wrote a piece about Trek losing a case with the federal government over trade adjustment assistance for its workers. Explain how this works, John.
Well, the trade adjustment program was set up as, kind of the most tragic of all federal initiatives. It was a way that basically Democrats, not entirely, but basically Democrats could vote in favor of free trade deals that shut factories or that made it easy to move jobs overseas, and then say, but I voted to protect displaced workers. And so they set up this trade adjustment program to, provide some retraining for, 60-year-old guys who get bumped out of their jobs so that they can, become Walmart greeters. And the tragedy of the trade adjustment program is, of course, that it barely begins to do a real adjustment for the damage done by trade. It doesn't help all the people in ancillary industries. It doesn't help people in, who might have one day had a job in an industry if it remained in existence. But it does provide us with at least some measure of how many jobs we're losing. And in this case, the Trek case, it confirms that a number of jobs in Wisconsin were lost because the company chose to move operations to China rather than to keep the jobs here in Wisconsin.
So, this is interesting in that in the past, Republicans have taken a hit on this issue. And of course, because Mary Burke is using Trek as sort of her resume builder, and the fact that Trek has a long history in Wisconsin, she's taking a hit on this. But as it turns out, Mike Tate, chairman of the Democratic Party, has put out scathing repudiation on Sean Duffy, Ron Johnson, and Eric Hovde about their firms outsourcing or voting for policies that do outsource. So, can the Democratic Party have it both ways?
Well, they could try, but it's not going to work. I mean, it's very important to understand that this is exceptionally damaging to Mary Burke. And it will, I hope there's nobody so naive, so foolish as to think that the details in this article won't be backed up by an $8, $9, $10 million advertising campaign come next year in which the Republicans and Scott Walker and their allies will cynically, and I want to emphasize, very cynically, make this one of the most known facts in the history of Wisconsin politics. To think otherwise would be, actual political malpractice. And so the Democrats should be thinking very, very hard about the circumstance they find themselves in and about how they're going to deal with these issues, because I cannot begin to emphasize to you the extent to which these issues will arise in 2014.
I have a graph here that shows corporate fortunes as a parallel to corporate outsourcing. Okay? All the way from 1947 to 2011. All right? It looks to me like about 30 million jobs have been outsourced.
But that's probably an underestimate.
Yeah, probably. But
yeah.
the graph of corporate, we look at the Dow hitting 16,000. The corporate fortunes and corporate profits have gone up in a direct parallel to the jobs being outsourced. Why is this some sort of foreign conversation? I mean, I admit I was quite critical of Mary Burke in this article, saying that, I think she's directly...
Yeah, you didn't exactly
No, I didn't hold back. I said she
directly,
she should answer the question. Is she directly profited from Trek making their bikes in slave wage countries? And I think that's a legitimate question.
He said so.
Well... why should this be separate with the fact that Wisconsin's economy and the American job market isn't very good?
Well, no, I mean, this is all linked up, and it's what really matters in our political discourse, because all of the talk about, being for jobs or, about, we don't want to give tax credits to companies in overseas, or, we're going on a trade mission to China to sell ginseng or whatever. All of that is a bogus side discussion because the core of the whole thing is trade policy. When you set up trade policies that make it dramatically easier, in fact, that encourage companies to move jobs overseas, they will do so. And that's what's happened. That's the core of what's going on. And we have structured a U.S. economy now around this cruel assault on American workers and, frankly, on the long-term viability of the American economy. And here's the thing to understand how bad it is. When a company announces that it's shutting a factory in the U.S. and moving jobs overseas, its stock goes up. When it announces that it's hiring in the U.S., sometimes, not always, but sometimes company stocks go down. So we actually we've created a investment culture, a speculation culture that rewards companies for moving jobs overseas. That's the circumstance in which Trek found itself. And in fairness to Trek, that is a part of the calculus. It's a part of the reality when you're trying to compete. But if you're running for governor of Wisconsin and you've got to defend that, good luck. Good luck.
Well,
I don't think most Americans see it as a good idea.
Permanent trade status for China happened in 2001. In 1998,
2000, yeah.
Yeah, 1990. Well, yes, it passed in 2000, but it was signed into law in 2000. You know, it was
right.
Actually went into effect in 2001. 1998, Trek made 80% of its bicycles in America. But now it's 0.5%. So
big change, isn't it?
It is a big
that's
change.
almost like how many of those shoes were made up in lacrosse before or the boots
before Ron Kine threw his sister out of work? Yeah, right.
And then, but here's another one. How much of the cookwares, up in Manitowoc, right? How many of those factories were still operating? How many jobs did you have up there? Here's the bottom line. Permanent normalization of trade relations with China was a policy that in particular gutted out Wisconsin. Wisconsin was a uniquely badly damaged
Wisconsin
state
and Indiana,
in that regard. Yeah. And the thing to remember on that is that if you're running for president of the United States, you should certainly be good on these issues. But if you're running for governor of Wisconsin, you ought to be really good on these issues. And the fact of the matter is that I think if ever there was a time when the Democratic Party would want to be, would want to have this one right, this is it. Because my sense is that a lot of these issues are coming home to roost. People really are becoming more and more aware of the damage done by trade policy. And the TPP debate this Trans-Pacific Partnership debate that's going to play out, this fall and into early next year is going to highlight those issues even more. So, again, I think that the Bice story, and it's not to be tough on Mary Burke or tough on anybody else, I think the Bice story is an exceptionally significant story in this campaign, and it's one that I suspect will resonate well into next year.